Welcome to 561 Music. I'm Bryce.
And I'm Hector.
What's going on, Hector?
Not too much, Bryce. So this is a little weird for me. Usually it's Ben sitting there.
Yeah, what am I doing here, man?
I don't know, man. What are you doing here? So I think this week we were gonna have a little bit of different approach, and we were gonna interview our host Ben, and that was gonna be impossible to have Ben interviewing Ben. So
this is true.
So we had you come in.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I could do my part in flipping the script. And,
yeah, man. Thanks so much for coming and doing it. The actual sort of situation, what happened was we have this a great friend of ours who was going to do the episode and he couldn't do it, but you, Bryce, had suggested like about a month ago that oh, hey, what if I interview you, because you always have to interview everyone else, and so when this guy couldn't do it, I was like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
so,
man, I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah,
Smooth.
absolutely. Yeah,
Smooth.
totally, man. It's awesome. All right, then. So, have you got some questions for me?
Well,
then?
I do have a couple questions. I'm new to the interviewing world, but the good news is I'm generally interested in asking you these questions. So they were really easy to come up with, I feel like I could still keep talking to you from the last time. When you interviewed me, we touched on a lot of common grounds. We just we had to actually watch the clock because we were like two chatty Cathys over there. So now I'm back, dude, for round two.
Awesome.
So good to see you, Hector. Nice to see you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And Ben too.
Always good to see you.
So Ben, I hear I'm gonna ask you questions like I don't know you, so the listeners, if they don't know you, can learn a little bit more about you too. Obviously. Cool. So I'm gonna ask you first where you're from.
So I was born in London, and then I went to school in Dorset, which is off the south coast in England, and then I spent the last 10 years before I moved here in Manchester, which is really where I did a music degree there, and that's where I met my first kind of big music project, Sonic Boom 6. I met those guys there.
So that was over there before you even came to the States.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let me ask you this: can you tell me something ridiculous that people generalize about people from England that's not true or true?
I've got a few of these that I've been collecting up over the years. I've got a few of these. So
just
that's a loaded question.
Just a loaded question.
Okay, so one is, I'll give you one that's not true, and then I'll give you one that might be true.
Okay.
So one that's not true is that England has bad food. Now, it did used to have bad food. In the 70s and 80s, English food was... well, there's a number of reasons. One is that we were still really, in the 70s, kind of recovering from, the Second World War and stuff. And in that, and like, portions were small, and like that we didn't have a particularly advanced like restaurant culture, and food was pretty basic, honestly. But then in the late 80s and 90s, the cuisine in the UK just exploded.
It boomed, yeah.
Yeah, and now the food is really
wonderful.
good in it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, honestly, it's probably fair to say that non-indigenous food in England is the best food, but there is a lot of it. And I suppose one of the upshots of being so kind of awful and imperial in our past is that that when you come to England, it's very multicultural, and that means that
lots of good flavors from a lot of different countries.
Exactly,
there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the Indian subcontinent and everything. And
Yum.
like I think chicken tikka masala overtook fish and chips as the English national dish.
Well, there's something I didn't know. Yeah, that's what you think. That's something, that's something I think.
It's
fish
funny.
and chips, man. Come on.
Every place you go around here, or or anywhere in the U.S. that serves any kind of English dish, it's immediately like the fish and chips.
That's it.
You go to an English pub and I need a beer and fish and chips.
Yeah.
I'm from New England, dude, and that's it, man. And you go to Cape Cod, it's like fish and chips.
Yeah, exactly.
And so this is I guess like one that may be true, is that English people have bad teeth. Now,
these are so funny to me. I've never heard these, so I love it. When you tell me this.
So it's not that I would say that what's true about that statement is that it's not that English people have bad teeth; it's that Americans are obsessed with having good teeth. So it's kind of like the other way around.
Yeah. Maybe it's more like English people have realistic teeth.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah.
I think American people are obsessed with more than just their teeth. They're obsessed with just their look in general, as given, as evidenced by the amount of plastic surgeons that there are in the U.S.
Yes, aesthetics is high on the charts with Americans.
Huge in the U.S. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the NHS does a lot of good and it's a wonderful service, especially over the last couple of years. The NHS has been, the NHS is woefully underfunded and filled with like really awesome, hardworking people, and you can get your dentistry done on the NHS as well. There's obviously private doctors and stuff like that in the UK as well, but the NHS is. It's fair to say that it's pretty underfunded, and I think so as a result, are people getting kind of elective sort of beautifying like dentistry work like not that often.
Sure. Sure. No, I get it. Well, perhaps the dentistry will jump up to the way the cuisine did.
Right.
And all will be well.
The big dental,
that's cool.
The big dental boom of the century.
Yeah.
This is
They're
one
still
that
waiting on it.
I got another one of these.
Okay.
So you know how we say herbs and you say herbs?
Yeah, we don't really pronounce it the H.
Right. This is something that really annoys me because you guys are right. And I was laboring under the misapprehension that like we were right. And it turns out that when the first English-speaking people moved to the US, at that time everyone pronounced it herbs because it's a French word, les herbes. Right?
Yeah, right, sure, okay.
And then when someone was revising the dictionary in the 17th century, they sort of made a rule where if it has an H at the beginning, you pronounce it to make it sort of more, because English is predominantly like kind of like a mashup of like French and Germanic languages.
Sure.
And they just took it a little bit more in the Germanic direction in the 17th century.
Sure.
But the old way that English people used to say herbs is how Americans say it. So, yeah, you guys are right, which sucks for us.
Wow.
Herbs is really just more than one guy named Herb, right?
A
group of herbs. Yeah.
Herb, whatever floats your boat. Right. Tomato, tomato.
Exactly.
Tomato, bro.
Ultimately, there's no right and wrong. Sometimes I speak to people. I'll have people come up to me and be like, oh, nice accent, and I'll wind them up and be like, oh yeah, I like your accent too, because some people. It blows their mind when they find out they have an accent. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Like some people just think they speak standard.
Yeah,
and everyone else.
It's true.
It's pretty funny when you meet those people. I always like to wind them up.
Well, I asked you.
I speak Spanish.
Not that long ago, I'd asked Ben that question. Where I watch a movie. And it always boggles my mind when I see an actor like I forget the kid's name, but the guy who plays Spider-Man right now, the kid's English, and so I see him in these Spider-Man movies, and he speaks like he lives in New York or something. And then I see him in some random interview, and he has this thick British accent. To me, thick British accent, anyways. And so it always boggles my mind because I always think to myself, I always think of like American actors faking a British accent, but it never occurs to me that there's people from like England and Australia and stuff like that that have to fake an American accent. And that it really is an accent to them.
Yep.
And we were talking about that, and I watch it like a lot, and some people are good at it and some people aren't. Do you know who Eddie Izzard is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not so hot in the American accent, but he can do so much amazing stuff. Like he can do comedy sets in French, which is crazy.
Wow.
But his American accent not so hot.
Not so good.
Yeah, but then you look at the guy who played House, whatever his name is. I forget his name.
Oh well,
he does an amazing job.
I'm just gonna ask. He has English accent.
He's English. Yeah.
Wow.
Hugh Laurie, he's called.
Hugh Laurie.
Wow. Yeah. Excellent show. Great actor. You would not think that he's English. You would not think
That's
that.
funny, man.
Wow,
I didn't know
man.
that either.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was in like this great British show called Blackadder back in the day, which was my favorite show.
Wow.
I think, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So
Well, man, crazy. So, all right, we're learning stuff as we go about Ben. I just had to learn about England a little bit and some things from thoughts.
Yeah.
So I just want to jump into it with you, Ben, about some of your first musical inspirations.
Yeah.
I don't know at what age the music bug hit you, but I just picture you a young boy. in England, and you know, could you lead me on from there?
Yeah.
Where were you at? What was happening?
Ben was playing saxophone as a fetus.
Yeah.
Saxophetus. So that's gross.
So wrong.
Anyway, so when I was a little kid, my mum was very musical, and she had me playing the piano and the recorder from a young age, and I took to it pretty quick. And when she noticed I took to it, she was like, "All right, then, you know, we're gonna have you sort of doing a lot of music." And when I was quite young, I moved around schools quite a lot. You know, every couple of years it seemed like I was going to a different school because my parents were moving house and things like that. And also that there's like in England you have like public schools and private schools like you do here. But you know, there's quite a kind of like it's almost like a culture. I feel like in the US it's just a bit more like how much money you have, but in England it's how much money you have, but it's also kind of like, you know, there's like a class system. You notice more in England than you do here. I mean, there is here as well, but
Sure.
you notice it more in England.
Sure.
And, but anyway, my parents started to sort of be really successful, and so I ended up kind of moving from a public school to a private school. And yeah, and this private school I went to is called Thorngrove, had a really good music program, and so I was playing in all sorts of different things, you know, like little bands and orchestras and stuff, and that's where they had a picture of the saxophone on the wall, I remember, and it was this beautiful shiny thing, and of course, you know, I'm sure my mum remembers. Of course, I had to like pick the, you know, one of the most expensive instruments that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Look at that, man! Look at that! I want to play the saxophone." And eventually, they acquiesced to my desires and got me a saxophone.
Wow, that's
and
great.
I had this great music teacher called Kevin Riley. He was in the army, and then he left the army and then did something else. My mum was telling me he had some kind of job in between, but then he became a music teacher. He used to come to our house and teach me music, and then he ended up working at my school as well. And he was a great teacher, but he did stuff back in the day that, yeah, I don't know if you could do now. Like, and he'd do things like he'd be like, "If you don't get that right, I'm going to stand on your foot."
yeah, right.
You know, stuff like
that wouldn't fly in this day and age.
Yeah, he never did. Actually, did. I don't remember him actually standing on my foot at any point. But the threat was there, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you know, it was a helpful pressure, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, and he was my sax teacher. He was the best, to this day, the best teacher I've ever had. He got me from not being able to play a note on the thing to passing my grade 8. And like, do you have the grade system here?
Not so much. I don't know. I mean, we have grades for classes, but not so much for the music.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one for music classes.
In music in England, there's this thing called the Associated Board, and they do. There's this grade system that it's like the kind of standard. Every kid, if you're learning an instrument, it's like a way of getting better at it.
Yep.
It's recognized by all schools and everybody, and everyone knows about it. And he got me. Grade 8 is like the hardest one. And he got me from don't be able to play a note to like grade 8 in like 3 years. I just went, you know, like my parents kind of making me practice and him teaching me and me also being interested in it. You know, I got good at the sax real fast, and that was my saxophone was really my main thing for a long time.
Was that your first instrument that you learned to play proficiently?
I feel like I started on piano.
Piano, the mother of all instruments.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I was never like, I wasn't a savant at it. I didn't kind of come exploding out.
Right,
I wasn't
right.
like amazing at piano.
Sure.
I was just like okay at it, and I also hated practicing it.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid.
Sure.
Yeah, I could never be bothered to practice the piano.
Yeah.
But with the sax, it was different. I enjoyed practicing the saxophone.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And then around like, and so everything was really sort of rock music that I would hear little bits and bobs of, but because I was brought up in the countryside, you know, until I was kind of 12 or 13, I was pretty clueless with that stuff. It was just, you know, like the pop music that was on the radio and oldies and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, that's what I was wondering. What was some of the first music that you were like, you know, aside from your, you know, like playing instrument stuff? Was there music, like you're saying, on the radio that really drew you? And was there bands as a little kid that you can remember digging? Or just a young,
I remember learning You've Lost That Loving Feeling. Like I remember playing that song over and over and over again, so driving my parents mad. And also, what's it called? La 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 da 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 da. What's it called?
I'm trying to think of the name.
Skip the light fandango, turn cartwheels against the floor. That song, whatever that song's called. Like and a few others that my mum knew how to play Lady Madonna on the piano.
Oh man,
with that octave bass. She taught me how to do that, and it was just quite a musical house. And I was at a musical school, and also add to that the fact that my uncle was a professional musician, and like he had played Glastonbury in the 80s. On the Pyramid stage, like right in there on the good stage, and he was that was when Glastonbury was a lot more folky, you know, like because his band Blows the Bella they are still like a folk act, but not in the way that really Americans think of folk. It's like dance music, so it's instrumental, and you have like it's like I have a hurdy-gurdy there on the top of my arm. It's like a
cool.
Do you know what hurdy-gurdy is?
No, I don't.
So you wind it with one hand, and it has strings inside it, and you play on the left hand. When you press the buttons, it has like a fretboard, and so it has drone strings that are always going. So it's like, and then over the top, you can play melodies on these other strings, and so and it also has this tiny little thing in it. I think it's called the frog or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe it's not the frog, but it's called something that makes a little buzzing sound. So you end up with this kind of zing 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 zing.
Man, that's cool.
You should check them out. The hurdy-gurdy is the coolest.
Hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah.
Man, I'm learning all sorts of things talking to you.
Yeah, and he had a hurdy-gurdy player in his band, an accordion player, but he was a horn player. He was a sax player. So a lot of my improvisation is really, I don't know if he knows quite how much he influenced me, because I'd hear him play these lines and some of these folk songs, and I always include them in the way that I improvise, because it's almost like, you know, I feel like it's like I want us to have like a family sound, you know?
Yeah. Sure.
Like, and that's something that I don't think I've ever really vocalized, but it's definitely something that I was in, you know, that I kind of wanted us to sound a little bit alike, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And then, you know, we have played a little bit together. When my grandfather died, we both played together in the church, and just on two saxes and stuff. And we've done a little bit over the years together, but you know, his musical direction and mine were miles apart.
Sure.
And we haven't done a huge amount. We did a little bit. Every now and again he'll get in touch with me and be like, oh, can you figure out something to put on this track I'm doing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's been a part of my life and in my kind of, you know, like peripheral vision, just doing his thing my whole life. So that was, it was my mother's side. My dad is quite musical though. He's sung for the Pope before. He was a good.
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
You have a lot of great musical influence. I mean, how could you not play music?
I know, right?
I mean, seriously. I mean, I thought I had a musical family. You got it, man.
Yeah. Well, my dad used to sing in choirs when he was young.
That's great.
He went to like a Catholic school with monks and stuff, and then like when he was a teenager, he didn't really keep it going. He just kind of fell off. But he had a great taste in music, you know, like John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and people like that. And you know, my dad's musical taste was less present when I was growing up than my mum's, but it didn't mean he didn't have it. He didn't really force it on me as much.
Right.
Like my you know, it was my mum who I was like going to school in the car, you know, listening to all her stuff. And at the time, what she was playing me was Dire Straits was always on in the car.
Yeah.
And Eurythmics was always on in the car. And Paul Simon.
think I love your mom.
Yeah. She hooked you up.
Yeah.
She hooked you up with that playlist in the car.
Yeah, and she had all her records from when she was young. So, she had like all the Led Zeppelin. My mom was a big Led Zeppelin fan. And,
That's awesome, man.
And she loved, Fleetwood Mac.
That's great.
And that album Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, I remember just as a little lad like putting it on. I love that song Sarah. You know that song Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my favorite song, and she used to let me play her LPs and stuff back in the day. And I was trying to think, Jethro Tull and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Great, man. It's
yeah.
great.
So I had, in terms of rock music, it was really my parents' records, but I didn't really develop my own kind of taste in it until I was I guess like 11, 12.
Yeah, when you're older, I think when it starts the beginning of what's really going on, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of like a product of your environment maybe when you're young, because you almost don't know any better, and you just start to gravitate what everyone around you is gravitating towards. But then you become that free thinker, and the things start to
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember my so the first I remember me and my brother went and got our first like LPs like together. Mum took us, gave us the money. And my brother got Bad by Michael Jackson. I got Use Your Illusion 1. I think. Yeah. So, which is funny because my brother makes dance music now, and I'd like predominantly make like rock and guitar music. So I guess it's always kind of been a bit like that. Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah, and I think that was the first thing that I bought with my own money. Was Use Your Illusion 1.
Wow.
And
first
then,
LP?
Yeah, on cassette though.
Yeah.
And then
cassette. Not an epic tape collection.
Dude, I remember when cassettes first came out, and I was like so excited about it, like it was going to be like revolutionize the world,
I know, yeah. It's like,
and then you had to wind them with a pencil.
Yeah, when stuff got hairy, dude. If you were lucky, you could scotch tape and trim it just right, and you could still keep that tape, just have a little and get through it.
Mixtapes, man. That was
mixtapes.
That was good times.
Well, man, that's amazing. So, these influences growing up. You're playing music, multi-instrumentalist at a young age. It's great. I'm exposed to some beautiful music, and a family surrounded by music.
Yeah.
So, what was your first band experience?
So, Yeah. I feel like, it's funny when you talk about it, you start to realize that how much, my mum was involved in it. I remember she used to get us together with my friends. I had a friend Diego De Napoli and a friend Ben Peart and a friend Luke Smith, and they put us all in a room with instruments and had us try and jam with each other and everything. And this is when we were like, I can barely remember it. We were so young. We were like, sort of like 7 or 8, I guess.
Sure.
And so I was already doing that then. And then when I went to so after the school Thorngrove that I went to, that was one of these schools. The way it works in England is if you go the kind of private school route, you stay at your first one until you're 13, and then you go to your secondary school when you're 13. You stay there till you're 18.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I went to this school called Bryanston in Dorset, in Blandford in Dorset. And Dorset's down by the south coast, beautiful place. It's like all kind of rolling fields and kind of countryside. There's some towns there, but the Dorset countryside is just to die for. Amazing. Wow, and nice. The school I went to was just a big house in the middle of nowhere, and the music department was amazing. Wow. And I got like a music scholarship. It wasn't a particularly good music scholarship, but I got my lessons for free and stuff like that.
It's great.
And they made me work for it though. If you were a music scholar, you had to be in every single band.
Sure.
You had to be in all the choirs and everything.
Sure.
So I was I was singing from a young age, did so much cool stuff. Like we got to go to Venice and sing Palestrina in all the churches in Venice, and I was in the concert band, and in the concert band we got to go to Germany and play in all these like kind of old halls in Frankfurt and stuff like that.
Wow,
and,
that's cool.
Yeah, and so I was really, really super involved with music at my school, and as soon as I got there, I started a band, because me and my brother, just before I left. So the first time I played like a guitar and learn how to sing and play guitar was at this Christian camp I went to called Gaines when I was about 11, 12. And I learned Knocking on Heaven's Door and Two Princes, right?
Nice.
And that was the bug. I was hooked then.
Oh, yeah.
And then my brother by this time had drums and I had an electric guitar. And then I went off to school. And as soon as I got there, I was like, hit the ground running. I'm like, I'm going to be in a band. That's all I wanted out of life.
Yeah.
At 13, I was
what's changed?
I knew.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so I just, as soon as I could, I found some guys and we were always kind of like starting these little projects. It's funny, the band that I had when I was at school was called White Gold, which sounds so awful now, but it was literally nothing to do with being white.
Yeah, right.
I just thought it sounded cool. I was way too naive at that point to understand anything like
exactly.
that.
Oh my god. That's great.
And anyway, we were covering like, you know, at that point everything was Rage Against the Machine, you know. So
sure,
it was like,
sure.
and I remember I wrote a song that was meant to be like Rage Against the Machine, but it was all about like how they should let us smoke cigarettes. That's what the song was about.
Wow.
We had access to. We had this great music department at the school, and you know, I've complained about going to boarding school a lot over the years, but when I really think about how much access we had to music, honestly, I was really lucky.
Sure, it's probably an advantage.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You know, there was weird things like, because you're not kind of out in the world, and so you're socialized a bit strangely. But in terms of like just the access to music and musical equipment, we had it. There was a band room, and I just used to live in the music department. There was a few of us, you know, like kids. And it kind of like transcended the year you were in. If you were a music person, you know, like it was like a crew of people who were always up there, and that's where I started to forge my identity up at the music school at Bryanston, and just, you know, like figure out who I was like through music, really. You know?
Sure. No, that's totally interesting. When when I was thinking about these questions, I was thinking a very cut and dry answer, like, it was this band, it was me and my two buddies, and we did. But it's great. There's much more to that with you. You're like actually at a school with a lot of other kids with great access to the music department. That's that's awesome. Very contrasting to mine, so I can really appreciate that. That's great.
They had like a studio in there, and it wasn't fancy. But it had like an Atari ST with notator on it, and had like one of those old Akai samplers that had about 15 seconds of memory.
Sure.
And like you could just make like drum hits and like cut out tiny little bits of audio and stuff.
Yep.
And I learned how to use a notator at a pretty young age, and it had a reel-to-reel. Learned how to use that when I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
What was your first notator song?
It was called Recharge Me, and it went like recharge me, recharge me. And I had another one which was like Mars needs women. Mars needs women. So Mars needs. It went like that. And these two tunes. I wish I had that tape still. Like,
you should play those for us later.
I was going to say, can we record that?
Yeah, is that what you're going to do for us?
Are you going to play us that song? Mars needs women. Yes. Well, if nothing else, it's a great name for the next Killbillies album.
Yeah. And you must remember what it was like when we were teenagers. Music was competitive. It's like, what do you know about? Like, you know, what are you digging in? What are you looking at?
Yeah.
And we were all like, we were just, you know, just trying to know about stuff that other people didn't know about. Everyone was like, but have you heard this, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of, you're very right about that. Like, you know, even when we talk, listen to alternative music and stuff, like alternative music that's not in the mainstream, it's kind of like, well, have you heard this? Have you heard this? It's almost like the more obscure music you could find some places at times, the cooler it was.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Yeah,
I used to love listening to like just you know, stuff that's a little more mainstream now, but I mean stuff that like at the time, you know, was pretty cutting edge, or like not everybody listened to it.
Yeah.
As stupid as it sounds, things like, you know, U2, for example.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to U2, you know, for a while already in high school and stuff. And then I remember like some big, huge stadium U2 concert coming rolling through here, and everybody, it was like my junior year of high school, and everybody was like, you going to the show? And it was like, you're like nobody if you're not going to the show. Like you're a loser if you don't go to the show. And I'm like, I've already been to 2 U2 shows and they were not in stadiums. Like what are you talking about? But just all these bands that Crash Test Dummies and stuff that I don't even know. Just all these bands that I listened to in high school that nobody listened to, and then a few years later, everybody was, hey, have you heard of this band? I've been kind of listening to them for about 5 years now.
Welcome to the party, bro. Come on in, the water's warm. Absolutely. No, agreed, man. Agreed. So Ben, obviously, I didn't meet you until you moved to the States. What year did you move to the States?
2010. But I had been coming to the States like back and forth for quite a long time.
Okay.
My the combination of the fact that I was playing in this band Sonic Boom 6, and we were touring over here, the combination of that and my dad was setting up a branch of his company over here as well. So he was, for a short period of time, was living in New York. And so the combination of touring here, my dad living in New York. First time I came to the US was October 2001, right after September 11th.
Oh, man.
Because my dad was in the insurance business. And, he obviously knew people in the towers. And obviously he had to go to some serious meetings about, what the hell are we going to do? Like, kind of meetings. Like, oh, God, what are we going to do meetings? Yep. And we sort of took it as an opportunity to just go with him, I guess. I don't know. But because it was right after, the plane was, like, empty. There was no one on the plane. And, so I had this weird experience of New York, like in October 2001, where everyone was walking around like in a daze almost.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, wow.
Sure, man.
That's a crazy first impression. You know what I mean? Well, I know you've been coming for a little bit, but still after that.
At that point, that was the first time. When I was 21, around 2021, that was my first time coming here. I remember I was in the car with my dad when it happened on the way up to, it's like when JFK died, everyone knows where they were, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was in the car on the way up to university in Manchester with my dad, and he gets a call, and he's like, oh, can you answer that for me? I answer the phone, and they say to me, oh, the plane's crashed into the Twin Towers. And I said, what are they? I didn't even know what they were. And I tell my dad just goes white, and he's just like, oh my God. And, we had to pull over, and it was like, and anyway, the following month, I came to the US. So that was my first experience. I had some family that already lived in the US. I had 2 cousins. And then a third cousin lived in the US as well for a while. So for a brief period of time, it almost felt like my family was like all moving to the US.
Sure.
It's ended up now that it's just me and one of my cousins. So two of the cousins on that side of the family ended up moving back. But for a period of time there, it was like glory days. My dad had this place. It was have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen I Am Legend?
Yeah. Great movie.
I'm pretty sure it's the same house, like the apartment, like right there in Washington Square Park.
Right in the mix. Wow.
Right there, yeah. Wow. Is where my dad had a flat right at the top of he had an apartment right at the top of the building, and we'd like play like the Knitting Factory in Manhattan, and then we'd go stay at my dad's flat. It was a crazy time.
Sick. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. It was like I always call that like the Child's family glory days.
Those definitely sound glorious. I tell you what, playing New York City is nice.
Yeah, it's good times, man.
Yeah.
And so I had quite a lot of experience of the US before I moved here.
You didn't come in with total cold feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you mentioned your band, Sonic Boom 6.
Yeah.
When I first met you, you let me hear some of it, and I remember being very impressed, very impressed, as it leans on what I like to do, the reggae rock stuff, and you guys were really good at it. And plus, you were British, so you had a cool, different take on it that was also very exciting. I would like to hear more of that stuff one day. I only heard a limited amount of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool. Which kind of leads me to my next question. You've had a couple bands, you know? And it's something that I struggle with, too, with my bands that I've been in, although mine are probably less different than yours are.
Right.
But writing in general as an artist. Now, not to jump too far on the bands and whatnot. I feel like some of your bands are different genres of music.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? We have well, from the beginning we have Sonic Boom 6.
Yeah.
And we have the No Name Ska Band.
Yeah.
And we have the Killbillies.
Right.
And you have some different stuff going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, a lot of that stuff could live at the same festival, and it's all very groovy. It's great. But my question is, as a songwriter, to another songwriter, what's your take on writing music in different genres?
Well,
where does
I
it
think,
come
like,
from? Is it different inspirations and different directions? Is it artists? Is it, where is it?
I think that, so let's see, how's the best way to answer this? When I was like 19, I remember having a conversation with my girlfriend at the time where I was like, I want to be able to move fluidly between genres and just the genre not even be a thing. I just want to be able to express myself in the way that it wants to come out rather than being concerned about it. So right from an early age, I'd had this kind of desire to mix things together. And then when I moved to Manchester to go to university, I found this band who were a ska punk band, but at the time they were called Grimace, right? Mm-hmm. This is before I joined, and we all had this meeting. We all sat down. And I joined it from a mutual school friend, and we were in the brass section, and it was just straight up ska punk, just regular, like kind of like a bit like No Name Ska Band is now, just like a ska punk band. Yep. And we were all the guys in that band, and me included, were really into like drum and bass and hip hop and dance music in general, and we felt like it was important to kind of, at the time we wanted to sort of move like guitar music on a bit, Yes. And it felt like we were kind of breaking new ground. I know that like a lot of people have done stuff a bit like that, but for us it was very important that it was, for some reason, very important to us that we kind of like incorporated all of this dance music that we were really into and was happening around us into the music. Yeah, sure. And we did. There was a lot of different ways that we went about achieving that. One of them was just by like playing dance beats on the instruments. Sure. And and for us it was drum and bass and like ragga, and we were and the dance hall. That was where we were at.
I love the mix-up of all of it. I love it.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to do is mix these dancehall and drum and bass and ragga elements into a punk band essentially, and one way was just by kind of playing it so it kind of sounded like that. The other way was by using samples and stuff. Sure. So our drummer got one of those 8-pad Akai things, and he was hitting loops and then like playing along with the loops. Yeah. Because I was just obsessed with the amen break at the time, and I wanted everything to have an amen break in it. That's great. Yeah, it was my whole thing. That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, all my friends were real big drum and bass heads, and it was like my brother as well. Everyone I knew was just completely obsessed with drum and bass at that age. Sure. And we always used to go out to that. I was big into those kind of parties and everything. And sure. Yes. It's like a culture because, you get into it enough, you're going to nights like that, like kind of 3 or 4 times a week, and of course, there's all the kind of like the drugs and everything involved too. Sure. And and it's whole culture, really, right? Yeah, exactly. And that just permeated the band, and very consciously we wanted to figure out a way to do it that didn't sound like a studio project. We wanted to figure out a way, because like Skindred are a great band, but it sounds like they figured it out in the studio, and then they just kind of play what they figured out in the studio. Sure. I think we wanted to do something that sounded like more organic, more like it was just kind of. That's how we played. Yep. Rather than kind of overlaying things. Sure. Rather than a studio project. Eons talking about this, trying to figure that out. Like it was an obsession for us to make it to make it all gel together. Sometimes more successful than others, but occasionally we managed to get it so that it really worked. And there's other people were doing it too. There's a great band called Cap Down. It's like short for Capitalist Downfall, and they were it's cool bands, cool ska-core band with an alto saxophone, and they were very influential with us. Now, when it comes to getting back to your original question, where you're talking about how do you write songs, and why do you feel like it has to be one genre or another?
Yeah, or does it, or doesn't it? Yeah.
For me, it was that the folk music had always been there waiting for me, because I kind of feel like, through my uncle and things, and through the music that my parents had exposed me to and that was around me when I was younger.
That was your roots, maybe.
It was my roots, yeah. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, I was
wondering that.
Yeah, that was my roots, and that's what I came back to.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, how do you come from, mixing those elements, raga and the dance hall and and then to get to some of the really cool sounds of like the Killbillies, which is more folky and stuff like that. Like where's that transition?
Well,
but now I see it because it was your roots, man. You were recycling back to what felt good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That it felt more like my authentic self.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not scared to kind of approach different things, and at one point I was like a relatively decent rapper and stuff like that.
This I didn't know.
But I feel like my most authentic self is when that more kind of folky approach.
Sure.
And I was also really like, when folk punk came about with Against Me and everything, that was like I was like, oh, we're allowed to do that in the punk scene? And I was like, I'm jumping aboard this bandwagon.
We should mix it, it mixes it up a little bit, right, with the folk and the punk rock.
Yeah, and there's this great English guy called Frank Turner, and his songwriting and his lyricism especially really just wowed me. And then there's this band Crazy Arm. If you want to hear an awesome band, this great band, Crazy Arm, and I wouldn't necessarily call them folk punk, but there's a lot of folk in there.
Sure.
And I was and when all this stuff was happening, I was starting to see how I could kind of do something more folky, and also I was getting really interested in all the stuff that was happening in the US and like bands like Old Crow Medicine Show and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I was hearing how that was developing, because it was like at the time, and we're talking about like 2010, there was this whole kind of thing with, you had Mumford in the charts, you had Frank Turner and people, and Old Crow Medicine Show kind of on the periphery of the charts doing this kind of folk stuff.
I remember when that kind of the folk implosion came. I remember that. It was different, it was new, it was fresh. At least over here, to me it was. You know what I mean? When it hit the mainstream a little bit.
Well, you had people like Mumford & Sons were playing, like you said, that like being on the charts. I mean, they were on mainstream radio. Like,
they're as mainstream as you get. They're like U2.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. I don't mean to speak for all folk from the beginning of time, but in the mainstream, when those guys came in, they kind of, as mainstream music does, they kind of shone the light on a modern.
They made it perfectly acceptable to have that kind of music on just regular radio.
It moved me. That wasn't my deal, and I heard. I was like, "Oh, that's good."
Yeah,
well, I think they figured out how to. Again, I think a lot of English people in general, especially of our generation, massively influenced by dance music. It just took over in the UK, almost obliterated any kind of rock. But so you hear it in like. You hear it in Mumford & Sons, even, like with that pulse,
Yeah.
Like it's like techno with a banjo.
No, I love it. Maybe that's the translation why people are digging it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that all really inspired me. I loved it. And then when I met Micah Scott, he's a great musician.
Just spent 4th of July with him. We just played the same party, and he's my neighbor.
Yeah,
great guy.
Yeah, he is a great guy. And he was playing. He had been playing with a band called the Lahinch Mob, who were some local Irish guys. Do you remember Keith Ahern? Did you ever meet that guy?
I'm not sure. I'm not good with names, so it could have been in the past.
Well, Keith is unfortunately dead now.
Okay.
He,
Was definitely in the past.
But he and Michaud had played together in this band called the La Hinch Mob. La Hinch is a place in Ireland.
I've seen that name before with those guys. Yeah.
Do you remember that there was a bar called like Spider Murphy's or something like that?
Yep. Absolutely.
That was those guys.
I have not heard that name in so long. Wow.
Yeah.
Spider Murphy's,
that was those guys who like they ran that. That was like their bar.
Oh man. Well,
yeah. And there was this Irish influx that came. Just loads of Irish people came all at the same time, and there was this scene that was created, and all the people that. Like, you know, the guys from at O'Shea's and everything, and there was this like Irish scene, and Michaud had kind of infiltrated it a little bit. He was playing with those guys, and then, but I came right at the end of it, and Michaud, and Keith and I, we started Killbillies, and it initially it was like a lot of Irish music, and well, it's still basically it never really veered away from. It's pretty much the same thing as it is now. It's Irish music and Americana.
Sure.
And
sure.
And you know, some of the first songs we were doing was like, you know, the Pogues and Mumford and Sons and stuff. Same stuff that we still kind of cover today. But you know, over the years, that band just changed members and things like that.
Sure.
He even put it down for a couple of years and then picked it back up.
As bands do, it happens.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where that all came from. It basically when I kind of realized that like how to do a folk related thing. As soon it wasn't that I didn't lose interest in this kind of raggacore thing we were doing with Sonic Boom 6. It's just that all of a sudden I was just so drawn. I was like, I want to be doing that. And the combination of that and the rigorous touring schedule that we have with Sonic Boom 6 and the fact that I was fallen in love with my now wife Christy, there was all these things that were kind of pulling me away from the band. Sure. And you know, it ended up leaving. I was getting more and more anxious just being away all the time, and I was away so much. You know, it felt like it was like 300 days a year we were away.
Yeah.
We were away.
Unbelievable. There's something to be said for that.
You know, a lot.
It is. You know, it's probably one of the things you learn as a musician. You aspire to be popular because that's successful in our business. When you're popular and you're touring, it's like you think you want this thing, and it's great, but. It's a double-edged sword because next thing you know, you're living not luxurious. I wasn't living luxurious on the road, knowing no one. You know, everything. You know, it's a sacrifice. Next thing you know, your cushy little nest at home is far away. Your loved ones. So it's not glorious.
I know.
It's not glorious at all. I mean, you know, maybe when you're a bigger band, you're blowing up on tour, but it's hard to be away.
I do the same thing with the art, man. Like I you know, you aspire as an artist, you aspire to like get these great gigs and you know do these amazing pieces or whatever. And more often than not, they're not here in my hometown, so then I end up traveling. And so there was a time, you know, not so much now, and especially after COVID and stuff. Like you know, obviously during COVID I wasn't traveling, and now it's like just starting to pick up again for me. But the art thing, I mean, for a while there, like I was gone all the time.
Yeah, it takes a toll on you over time. You know, it really does.
And it's funny, I just did a piece, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I just did a piece in Chicago, and it was the first time I had traveled for my art since COVID. And man, I got anxiety over it. I left late Friday night.
I'm only laughing because I get it. You're like me. I'm the same way.
I left late Friday night, and I came back like first thing Monday morning. So I really was only gone Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
The entire time I'm like texting home and I'm checking on my kids. Like I was anxious the entire time I was gone.
I get it.
It's just I just hate not being home anymore now.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, you know, especially as a parent. Whoa, that's hard enough.
Well, and especially in a scenario like that, I guess when you're in with the band, it's a little bit different because you're hanging out with your bandmates and you're having some fun and whatever. But I mean, in this particular case, I was traveling by
almost
myself.
Like a stand-up comic, like out there on your own.
I was out there by myself, and you know, I went and I did the job during the day Saturday, went back to the hotel, went and did the job during the day Sunday, and then went back to the hotel. It's like you're just watching TV and eating a microwave dinner, man.
Yeah, sure does make you question your sacrifices at times, right? The things we do for the things we love, I tell you.
For sure.
I tell you, you know, Ben, I was curious today when I was thinking about you and these different bands, and you did have success, you know, in England before you even got to the States, you know? And I'm sure outside of school there, you know, I have to know, is there, just as there's a cultural difference from England to the U.S.? Is there the music scene? Is it different? Is like the way stuff goes down? Is it different from gigging to traveling? Is it the same? You know.
So
were you shocked when you got
it's
here? You're
harder
like,
in England.
okay.
Well, than it is in Florida.
Okay.
It's hard. We fought for every gig that we played. The scene isn't as we're in the punk scene. There's no money in it.
Right.
And to get people on your side takes a lot of work.
Okay.
A lot of work. Just straight up playing to like rooms of like 4 or 5 people standing around staring at like
Sure.
their shoes for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then
Tumbleweed tour.
yeah,
I think
and
we've all
like
been there.
Yeah, definitely.
and I know it's the
Unfortunately.
same in the US too, but so, I feel like that push to get anywhere is, and we were quite a weird band too, so it's to get to we didn't fit into any kind of like little box there, so we had to play enough where we kind of developed our own fans. We couldn't really jump on a bandwagon. We did a little bit with ska punk, but we weren't ska punk per se.
Sure.
We were kinda. We were in the ska punk scene, but enough for ska people to like us, but we weren't like cookie cutter ska punk. So
Sure.
so we had to we just had to play in front of people just a lot.
Yeah.
And and then people started coming out gradually, and it just took so. I mean, and I don't know if that is different than the US, because it kind of for the punk scene is the same.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you can be here is you can be kind of like locally successful.
You can. You can be a bigger fish in a small pond and survive here. You don't have to fight the whole pond to get yours.
Yeah.
You can actually. We have our own little cul-de-sac here in Florida.
Yeah.
We're like almost big enough to be our like unique little own place, and not to mention Palm Beach County where we're at. I mean.
Yeah, and I was talking actually to I saw the guys from Sonic Boom 6 last week, and so I was talking to them about that very thing.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how are you making a living out there, and I'm like, well, we play a bunch of sort of gigs around the area, and Nick, the guitarist from SP6, he said to me like, yeah, in the US you can kind of be locally successful, can't you? I'm like, yeah, you can, and that's something that's a little bit different. What we ended up having to ask, Manchester didn't initially want to like us, so what we did is we toured a lot and kind of got big everywhere else, because Manchester's like Oasis, like Factory Records,
it's a spot, right?
It has its own sound, so it's like if you're coming from this weird punk direction, but in Manchester, which at the time was wanting kind of like Britpop sounding guitar bands and indie bands. It's not, we didn't fit into it. We weren't the Manchester sound at all.
Sure.
So we were like the opposite of it almost. Yeah. So we had to kind of get big in London before Manchester accepted us.
Sure.
Even though we were cut out of Manchester. And once people started, really appreciating us in London, Manchester kind of caught up.
Right, sure.
And it kind of worked that way around.
Sometimes you got to heat up a different plate to get where you're going.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I know that, James from Butch and the Fat Dudes, he was saying that about, he's found that like, Butch does better in other places. And he's like building Butch up in other places. And it kind of slowly trickles back home, and builds it up here.
Yeah, it's funny. Other places can embrace certain bands and not, and it's crazy. It's good. Actually, if you can do that, you're right. If you can have a following over here and maybe a following over here, and they start to blend together. Yeah. And they all show up together in the middle areas.
You were saying talking about that gig on the time when you started seeing the tribes kind of merge together and become this one fan base.
Yeah, it was weird. Like Vero Beach was packed, and Fort Pierce was packed, and Stewart was packed, and then you'd go to Orlando, and a lot of them would come, and then it would be Orlando plus them, and then it'd make you look, successful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. That's cool. Man, well, that's interesting. So, maybe a little bit different, but a little bit the same too, seemingly,
I think that Europe, so England is like America in a lot of ways in terms of playing. The mainland Europe is different. They look after you like you're a prince. You go, they feed you, they put you up. There's all these squats in inverted commas, but a squat in like somewhere like the Netherlands or France is generally pretty nice. It's just like a house that like wasn't being used, and they kind of do it up, and it's like, and you know, when you think of a squat, you think of like, you know, heroin addicts and like
crack
kind
house,
of like a dog walking around.
Right.
But like they weren't
Crack
like that at all. It was a comfortable. Everyone's vegan in there, and like, you know,
I love it.
super nice.
Wow.
And that DIY punk scene that I discovered in Europe is just so cool. You could spend your whole life doing that. It's like really awesome.
Wow,
and,
that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and England isn't as like that. England's more like the US. It doesn't really.
Right.
You do have that kind of DIY punk scene here, but it's not as big. And there's just this kind of vibe with the punks and the live music community in Europe that's very. It's not materialistic. It's about experience and doing it, and have, you know, and it's about the network, and it's about, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's like a big crazy family. It's very different.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Totally.
Cool, man. So, you know, I gotta say, you know, this is one of the reasons where I'm come from. I was actually excited to, you know, interview you because you're so in the local scene. Man, you're a busy guy. I mean, not only do you have multiple bands and you give back to the scene, but you're also involved with 561 Music with Hector, and you're always about exposing everybody else and their music. And, you know, you're a giver, you're a lifter. And I think what's also awesome, learning a little bit more about you, is that obviously you're a music instructor also, and you teach children play music, and you teach people play music. After hearing some of your inspiring stories about some of your favorite teachers, being young and being moved by these people, I can see why. My next question was, where does the giving back come from? You know what I mean? You're such a giver and a lifter, bro, and you're so busy doing that. You know, so many people, I even feel guilty writing my own songs and not doing enough for other musicians sometimes, and sitting there and chasing my hit and my potential, you know, where you could be doing the same, but you don't, you know. And I see you giving back a lot to the community. Could you tell me where that comes from?
Well, my family has a lot of teachers in it. My grandfather was a teacher. And all sorts. I want to say that there's like a whole bunch of teachers in my family, and
a lineage of teachers, dude. I like that.
Yeah, and I always respected it as a profession, and also I realized when I hit about 30 that I needed something else, because, you know, I'm pretty prone to kind of, you know, like narcissism, and to do something outside of myself really just rounded me out a little bit.
Yeah. Keeps you in check a little bit, doesn't it?
Stop you from crawling too far up your own ass.
I can appreciate the hell out of that. I can appreciate the hell out of that. Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah, I feel like it's healthy, and
it is healthy.
And when I've ever done anything like that, it's always been very much supported by my family. Always like, you know, approve of it. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's where you come from. That's how they do. That's how you do that. That apple doesn't far from that tree right there.
Yeah, and you know, I think that it just having something like that to do in a day. It makes, and it helps you be more part of the community, and introduce you to slightly different people, slightly more wholesome people, you know what I mean, and families and stuff like that. And I think that having that in my life has been really important, like super important to me.
I think that's great. I think that is not only a great way when you're doing it for a living and gigging and stuff, it substantiates the music. Subsidizes, I mean, the money coming in, you know, for teaching and that. But at the same time, it kind of gets you out of the smoky bar rooms and breweries, and gets you to a whole nother side of music that you can give back to, and a seemingly almost more rewarding side of it to give the gifts and to share that knowledge with you know, younger.
It's really nice
students.
seeing people grow up. It's one of those jobs. It's one of those jobs that kind of like that it. You see the benefits of it like over time, you know, like as the years go by and you see people come through and you're like, oh man, I taught them, you know, it makes you feel good.
Yeah,
you know?
put a lot of good energy into
I remember
them
you telling a story with
reciprocating
Sierra Lane was our first guest on the show, and I remember you telling a story like how you were at a festival or something, and all of a sudden here comes Sierra Lane, you know, crawling up on the stage, and you were like, oh,
oh wow, I taught her. You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Good work, dude.
So-
Good work.
Well, Ben,
Yeah.
speaking of sharing and giving, why don't you share a couple songs with us, man?
That's a great idea, man.
that'd be unbelievable.
Let's get to it.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right, man.
This is called Song for Norma. When you say goodbye, we'll all be here. And when you take the climb, there's no need to fear. Some places unknown, those rooms unsure. When it's time to die, you'll stay with me. When you cross the line, quietly, and though we can't see, it's all meant to be. We'll come and find you in time. Where you are, you will always be in our arms and a part of me from your little room into eternity in our hearts and a part of me. Where you are, you will always be. Oh, in our arms and a part of me from your little room into eternity in our hearts and a part of me. This is a song I wrote a long time ago. It's called Liars, Cheats, Addicts and Thieves. We are liars and cheats, we are addicts and thieves, lovers and friends besides. We've come a long way, and by this way we must leave, hoping time can withstand the tides. Wherever we go and however we change, I know you'll still be there to confide. Now we know just how bad all our bad sides can be, our indiscretions, our secrets and sighs. We'll all find resolution in the end, my dear. One day all of our desires will be requited, and if not, it will do now to pretend it's clear. We do better when together and united.
worry now, it's so silly to care, cause if we're scraping for a barrel or we're millionaires, we'll always have Paris, they were having us there, and Tokyo to Trafford to Times Square. You know we've been there, enough shots to share. I'm still too rare to rock in my chair, so no, I won't turn, I'll be singing you there. I'll be on my own terms, on a wing and a prayer, and we'll all find resolution in the end, my dears. One day all of our desires will be requited, and if not, it will do now to pretend it's clear. We do better when together and united. Well, the future pans out like a vast open sea as we cast our dice on the water. As long as our feet, they don't fail, you and me, and our resolve doesn't falter. As long as we know that we'll all find resolution in the end, my dears. One day all of our desires will be requited, and if not, it will do now to pretend it's clear. We do better when together and united. Yeah, we do better when together and united. Oh, we do better when together and you.
Yeah, we have a so Handlebars Bar and Grill has it's now the official sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah.
They're sponsoring us every week, which is just so great. And honestly, we couldn't do this without sponsorship. So we're incredibly grateful. It's a biker bar up in Tequesta, right on the border of Palm Beach County and Martin County on US 1 there. And it's a biker bar, so if you have a bike, roll up on your bike and you'll get to see a whole load of cool different types of vehicles there. You have people showing up in rat rods and old sports cars and classic cars and all sorts of interesting stuff, as well as across the board, interesting bikes, vintage bikes, new ones like crotch rockets, all the way to kind of like beautiful old Triumphs and BSAs and stuff like that. So if you're if you are into cars and bikes, you couldn't want for a better place. The other good thing about it is that it now has live music on Saturdays from 7 to 10 p.m. on Sundays from 2 to 5 p.m. and every second Thursday we have a bike night. I'm involved with it. It's my father-in-law who basically has rejuvenated the place. It used to be called Judy's, and I'm helping any way I can. I'm helping him book the music and other little bits and bobs here and there. But it's really my father-in-law Peter Pinello who is running the show up there, and he's doing a great job. So come and support us, because it is 100% local musicians, local staff, locally owned, locally run, and we would love to have your support up there.
A lot of good beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of good food.
Yeah, if you're if you're hungry, we've got a chef who's been there for 2 or 3 weeks now and has really settled in, has just made the place his own, and we have a huge selection of beers, because Judy's was known for having loads of interesting German beers on tap, and we've tried to keep that going, so we've got a great selection of beer there as well. And really the only things wrong with the place prior to us taking it over was it was just getting a bit run down, and what we've done is we've modernized it a bit, updated it a bit, cleaned it up. The beer's cold, the food's delicious, everything's run properly and professionally.
Yeah.
We built a big deck out the front, and it's it's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool spot. So
Yeah.
Bet, man, that was very amazing, man.
Awesome, bro.
Oh,
I
thanks.
Very
especially like I heard something old and I heard something new. And that the new song. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It touched me a little bit. As you know, my father passed away not too long ago, a few months ago, and that song was real touching, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So I went home the last 2 weeks to the UK and spent some time, only a little bit of time because she's in a home, but a little bit of time with my grandmother and I think just the song is a combination of things, really just processing the emotions that I experienced visiting her.
sure.
And also kind of wanting to, write something to tell her that it's going to be okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's, it's just a big thing that we all have to face, all of us, is death, and she's alive right now, but she's in a home, she's very old, and it just kind of I guess it's the combination of me sort of sifting through my emotions on the subject, and also just a kind of I have this desire to just make her feel okay about it.
Of course, comfort her.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And I don't know whether playing it to her would really do that or not. I think that we've had people on here who said that, really ultimately they write songs for themselves, and I think in many ways it is. But also I think that, my mum, when she heard it, because she heard like the first draft of it, and she was like, oh, maybe in the future, we can use that, when the time comes. So there's that involved in it. It was really just, and my mum and my dad and I were actually sat around the table trying to sort of workshop lyrics on it, and I think it was quite a nice little therapy thing for us to do as a family.
All of
too.
you together.
That's amazing that you guys did as a family.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story behind that song.
Yeah, it was a again, man, the lyrics just kind of hit me. It just hit real close to home, and I feel you 100% on where you're coming from. We talk about all the time about how music is therapy, and 100% when my dad was passing away, that was the big thing. Or when that moment came and my dad was pretty close to his last breath, and we were all saying our goodbyes and leaning in and kissing him and telling him, we love you and it's gonna be okay or whatever. Like that was the big message for me, was to let him know that it was okay to go, and that and that it was that he didn't need to worry, that my mom was going to be okay, we were going to take care of her, and my sisters were going to be okay, that I was going to help take care of them, and that everything that he normally did, that it was okay, that I was going to step in, and I was going to do what needed to be done, to help out, and the family as a whole has really kind of stepped up and kind of taken that role. But there's definitely and you're right, it's probably more of a comfort for us than it is for them. It is a therapeutic thing, but yeah, man, very, very heartfelt, very beautiful song.
I was trying to explore like the group nature of humanity too, and like the we're all one, like in a very real sense, and that you may die, but that so much of it will live on in us.
Yeah,
sure.
And who knows what happens, when you go past the point, and it's not for us to know, but I just have this feeling that it's gonna be all right, and we'll be together.
I believe that same thing. I'm with you.
And
then
your other song was actually a song from the past, right?
Yeah, I wrote that one.
What was the name of that song?
The first one was called "Song for Norma." That's Norma is my grandmother's name. Second one is called "Liars, Cheats, Addicts, and Thieves," and it's about
Sounds interesting.
yeah,
it's great.
I love it.
It's just about it's kind of a hopeful song for the future, and it's about standing together, united, and trying to achieve our goals together. You know, and I feel like you know, there's nothing wrong with another unity song, and that's what it is.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
the world needs more unity songs, bro.
Yeah, right. You know,
The world just needs more unity.
Yeah. Perhaps the songs will get us there.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's what that's about, and it was also about like the achievements that at the time I wrote it. It was kind of mid Sonic Boom 6, and it was it's about like the things that we achieved, and how, you know, that brought us together as a team, and you're like, don't worry now, it's silly to care, because if we're scraping for $1 or we're millionaires, we'll always have Paris, they were having us there, and Tokyo to Trafford to Times Square. You know, we've been there with enough shots to share, and I'm still too rare to rock in my chair. So no, I won't turn. I'll be seeing you there, and I'll be on my own terms on a wing and a prayer. It's like we're all together. Like we're all together, and we're gonna make it. The positive song about making it.
It's affirmation, dude.
Yeah. So why don't we have a look at my pedal boards? Should we do that?
Yeah.
I would love to look at the pedal board.
Yeah, cool. So it's a bit of a mess, my pedal board, but what we got going on there is. Got that Fishman preamp DI, and
I love all the duct tape on this stuff.
Dude, I'm sorry. You guys have a great setup. I'm just cracking up that like one pedal straight, and they're all crooked with duct tape. And everything's awesome. Yeah. I love it. I love the ingenuity. It's sick.
I can't claim that it's pretty, but it does the job.
No, it's brilliant, bro.
You got the DI on there, and that has some effects. I use a bit of slapback on there, and also a tiny bit of chorus, and it has a boost on there, but I don't really use it anymore. But and then what else is on there? I've got a Electro-Harmonix Octaver, and I use that for when me and James do the duos. I run it through a Sans amp just to make the signal a little bit better.
Is that for your bass tones? You play bass? Okay.
Yeah. So the bass. No, it's not. It's for the. So I'm playing guitar, right? I use like one of those little. Have you ever seen those submarine pickups? It's just like a little pickup that only goes over 2 strings.
Interesting.
And I set that on the sound hole, and I use it to play through the octaver, so I get like an octave below, and that only triggers on the 2 low strings. Yep. And then I run that octave pedal through the Sans amp, just because I have a Sans amp, and I may as well use it for something.
Yeah, I'm sure it beefs it up a little bit.
Yeah,
beefs it up, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that freeze pedal is it just, you play a note and the note carries on forever like a drone. It's my favorite pedal. I love it.
He uses it all the time, and it's
very
awesome.
cool. What, the note is a solid sustain. It's not like it's not a delay.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, like a bagpipe kind of.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, as long as it's
that's cool. I don't know anything about those freeze pedals.
Yeah, and then that's just a real cheap delay. I need to get a better one at some point, but it's just, you know.
You got tap tempo on that or no?
No, and the way it's set up is it's just the right. It's the reason there's tape over the buttons is so that I can't accidentally kick.
No, that's brilliant, dude. That's why I was actually cracking up, because I've been there and I've taped the buttons, because all it takes is one kick and all of a sudden everything's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know what's going on.
And then just like everyone else on earth, I have a tube screamer, and then a tuner. Now that box there is the interesting thing, because what I do is I have another box about half the size of it, which goes on my guitar, and it's a bypass so that I can change. I can turn my pedals on and off from my guitar. And that
you were talking about this not too long ago. We were having a tech talk about it, so you did it. You brought that to life. Very cool.
And
very cool.
It's because in Killbillies we use the feet drums, so I can't, you know.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you can't do it. Wow.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Very cool. Nice adaptation.
And who did that for you?
Jason Hester.
Okay.
Put me on the spot there.
Shout out to Jason.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Absolutely, yeah. Down in Delray. Good bloke.
Yeah. Very cool. So there's a trigger on your guitar also?
It has 2 switches. One is for the delay and one's for the tube screamer.
That's brilliant.
Really helpful.
Wow.
It doesn't look pretty, but it does exactly what I want it to do. It's
it
great.
matches the pedal board. It's perfect. Exactly. They go together well.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I like that. I like that little pedal board. I like the way you got the real estate all taken up with all potent pedals on there. It looks good. You're using them all.
The freeze
Yeah.
pedal
It's
is
sweet.
brilliant, though, man. He hits that. He'll hit a note. He'll hit that.
That's
it
so
holds
cool.
it out like at the beginning of a song, so you just hear this like drone out note, and then he starts playing like a couple of like
so great.
melody pieces to it,
Yeah.
and then usually about that time I start coming in with a little bit of like bass, but like playing the feedback a little bit on the bass.
Sure.
And then James will start coming in, and then finally he'll let go of that thing, and we just kind
And
of
the
all
music's
come in.
already
Yeah,
there.
it's
It's
awesome.
brilliant. It's
Yeah,
brilliant. I
awesome.
cannot wait to witness that live
Yeah, it's
because I'm
awesome.
excited about that. That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
once you get like what it does, you'll want one. They're just neat. You can make a delay pedal do that, but
Yes.
the way that this is, the chip in there, the way it sounds is
Yeah.
so great. It sounds really droney. It sounds really like bagpipey, and
Yeah.
which really suits our music.
Seems like great for the Killbillies, like the
Yeah,
bagpipey vibe. Very,
Well, the real
very
reason
cool.
we ever, we did 561 Music is because we get to do this tech talk thing here.
Trust
and
me,
So,
yeah.
and
I'll
he
be
doesn't
here
like his delay pedal, and so
yeah.
every time we have somebody on here,
Yeah.
we look at their board, and he immediately perks up when they start talking about the delay pedal.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
He's basically shopping delay pedals on the
Yeah.
561 Music podcast.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot of
exactly
good ones out there. There's a lot of good ones out there.
All right. Well, this is where we usually do. We talk about the guests' upcoming gigs, and because Ben is in Killbillies and I'm in Killbillies with Ben, it is a shameless Killbillies plug this
All
week.
right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, when in Rome,
So,
let's shamelessly
yeah,
plug it.
Unfortunately, by the time people are hearing this, they it will be past the time. But as we're recording this tomorrow night, Thursday, we're playing at the Funky Biscuit in Boca, which is our first time there, and I'm excited about that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very
I'm
cool.
really
I
excited
hear cool
about that.
things about Funky Biscuit.
And then Friday we're at Brick and Barrel in Abacoa, and that's always a good time.
Nice. It's my neighborhood.
Saturday, I believe you and James are doing a duo
Yeah,
at
Square
Square Grouper,
Grouper.
3 to 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Jupiter?
Yeah.
Square Grouper?
Yep.
Jupiter,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. They do that
Cool.
every Saturday as a duo.
Oh,
Every
very cool.
other-
Every other. I'm sorry. Every other Saturday.
All right,
Every other
all
Saturday.
right. Very cool.
And then Sunday you're at Handlebars doing solo, right?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, this Sunday, between 3 and like 4:30, I'm going to be sticking the football on because England made the final of the European Cup. It's
all right,
so
dude.
awesome.
For those
Oh,
that don't
wow.
know what
Yeah,
football
yeah.
is,
So it's gonna
he
be going
means
off.
soccer.
Yeah, so it's very exciting for everyone who's English because we haven't done this well in football in forever.
Oh man, well
Yeah.
I'll be rooting for you, dude. Just because
Yeah,
of you,
yeah.
I'll be rooting.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yep,
awesome.
I like that.
And Bryce, just as a thank you to you for hosting.
Man.
For
Dude,
hosting.
thank you
Yeah.
guys. Thanks for letting me come in and
what,
talk. I love both you guys. Love talking to you.
What kind
It's
of
great.
gigs you got coming up this weekend?
Oh man, so I'm actually I am just about to embark on a little vacation to my homeland,
nice,
which is
nice.
long overdue. So I actually have a really
That's right, you did
short
say that.
week.
Okay, yeah.
The only thing Mike and I are at Taylor Farmhouse on Friday night
Friday night?
as a duo, 6:30 to
Cool.
9:30.
Okay, cool.
And that's the only thing that's like the public gig this weekend. But then
Right.
we'll be
Yeah.
back at the end of the month. I'm gonna enjoy this
And
little
that's-
stint off. I could
Yeah,
use a
man.
rest,
That's
man.
6:30 to 9:30. So for those of you listening, you can go check out Bryce. And then we go on 9 to midnight, so then you can come
Yeah,
check us
plenty.
out. So
We can
just
got
prime
fun.
you
up. We
You
can
can do
prime
both.
you up.
You can do both.
Yeah, it's
You
great.
don't have to choose.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming out and hosting.
thanks for having me,
It was
guys.
fun to
Yeah.
interview Ben for a change.
Yeah, I like to crack his brain open and see what's going on inside there.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome. Cool,
Yeah, it was
man.
fun.
It's great stuff.
Not sure
awesome.
I can get it all
Yes.
back in now.
Yeah. Good
All right,
stuff.
guys. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Next time.
Talking about the scenes, it's what we're doing. Come and check it out, it's what we're all about. 561 Music.